Welcome into the Boardroom Podcast. I'm Ward 6 Alderman Ben Piper.
I'm Chad Wicker from Ward 4.
How's it going, Chad? You had a big weekend.
Yeah, you're the same age. You're a little older than me, but we turned 40 this year. So Shelby, my wife, and I, we went to New Orleans for a couple days to kind of celebrate her 40th birthday. She went there for her 30th birthday, so we went for her 40th birthday. And so
Nice.
yeah, had a good time. The only thing is there's a tropical depression down there, and it literally rained. We got there Thursday afternoon, Thursday all the way until Sunday morning.
A tropical depression in New Orleans?
Yeah, it's stuck, just spinning around, raining. And it didn't rain all the time, but it was constantly wet and rainy. We still were able to have get some good food, and we did a swamp tour. We had a covered pontoon boats. We did that, and we had a good time.
That sounds like a good time. That's fun.
Went to the World War II Museum. That's a must do if you ever in New Orleans.
Yep.
You could spend all day in there. We spent about 3 hours going through the different exhibits, and they do a really cool movie with Tom Hanks. It's a 4D experience. So it's like you're in a tank, riding in a tank, and you're on. It's really neat. So that's a great museum there in New Orleans.
I've heard a lot of good things about it. I have not been to it. The aquarium's good.
Yeah.
Down there. Obviously the food is phenomenal. Everywhere you go to eat is delicious and all the things. So, well, that's good. I'm glad y'all had a good weekend.
But before we got out of town, we had a big weekend Alderman meeting.
We did. So we're gonna jump into that.
You got anything else? How'd the soccer team do this weekend?
I kind of wonder. I wonder. I feel like people don't have to wait on a train as much as they used to. I feel like it's gotten a little better. So do we need a new theme song for the podcast? That's one of my questions this week. Is it time to change up the theme song for the podcast? Waiting on a train. We can go to waiting on a Chick-fil-A, waiting on a Whataburger. That construction seems to be dragging a bit, but they should be open soon, though. I think Whataburger, we had to close that one lane down for them so they could get some curb things taken care of, some traffic things taken care of. But slowly but surely, it's getting there.
I've heard maybe October for the Whataburger.
October, all right. Get ready. I know there was a couple kids in my neighborhood that had applied for jobs and all the stuff. So everybody's trying to get hired on. And
what's it, spicy ketchup? That's what they have.
Yeah, spicy ketchup, I think, is a thing there. I'm not a huge, I don't know a ton about Whataburger, but I've heard good things. I've been the one in South Haven just a couple times, but
I believe they're originally from Texas, I think.
Yeah, it's something. I read something on it that they have 1,100 locations, but 750 of them are in Texas. Yeah. So it's mostly a Texas chain. This will be their third location in DeSoto County, I believe. So that's exciting. But yeah, maybe we need to change the theme song. Waiting on a Chick-fil-A.
You're on the Chick-fil-A committee.
I know. We're trying to work on it. Yeah, I think you mentioned it during our last Alderman meeting. So we'll circle back to that Alderman meeting this past last Tuesday, September the 3rd, day after Labor Day, and the big line item from that was the fiscal year 25 budget was passed. It's a $22 million general fund, $11 million utility fund, so $34 million all in total fiscal year budget.
Yeah, you got a couple other. You got the park and recs and the so library fund, but basically it 34 million,
give or take. And so that was passed. And the big things from it is millions of dollars being spent on paving, which is an excellent thing. I think it was over $5 million. The massive bulk of that is fixing Mackinville Road North in front of the newly being constructed Hernando High School. They anticipate that project's going to be $3.84 million, somewhere around in there. So the real number, as far as neighborhood streets and city streets and that sort of thing, is probably around that $1.8 to $2 million mark. That will certainly help things out. I think that out of that, about $800,000 or $850,000 has already been sort of preset with a list of streets that was also discussed during the meeting.
Later in our meeting, we agreed to go ahead and pave some streets this year, which is something that the city didn't do before. We took office. They didn't do a lot of paving in the beginning of the the budget year because they didn't. It was a cash flow problem, and so that's one of the big things about having a contingency fund, having that money carried over. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, in just a minute. But
and also you look back, as we're going through the budget, some of these things we ask for, debt that's rolling off, and one of the debts that rolled off just this month, 2019 streets, $500,250. It was borrowed by a previous board. It's now being paid off. It's been paid in full, so it's taken care of. So, the previous boards did what they could with the cash that they had, and also borrowed to get that taken care of, to try to get some more paving done. But that's paid for now. That's one thing that rolled off. A couple other things.
Police cars we were leasing for silliness.
Got a couple other things that are rolling off. Some police cars, and in 2020, that totaled about $430,000. That money that was borrowed being paid off in the next fiscal year, so that will be out from underneath that as well. Everything else, it's a little bit further off. 2028, 2029, or much later than that. So there is some debt that's rolling off the books there. The other big thing, I think, city workers received at least a 5% cost of living increase to their 5%, salaries.
We added 12 workers, from various parts of the. I think 2 to the police, 2 to dispatch. What was it? 2 to the parks department, 6 medics. And then we took a part time in the courts and made her full time. So I think the mayor called that 12 and a half.
That's right.
But as additional employees, additional expenses we're going to have, everybody received a 5% pay raise. I think I asked a question about vehicles. I think we're purchasing about 5 or 6 vehicles, I think, in the budget. I can't remember exactly. Most notably, we're going to have a third ambulance up and running sometime. I think the fire chief said in March, maybe. So maybe the third quarter of the year, which is a big should help with the response times, especially in the southern part of the city. The third ambulance will be housed at City Hall there, and it'll surface that area there around, obviously the southern part of the city.
I know that there was some discussion around vehicles. I know Alderman Miller brought this up. There's a new vehicle for the fire department. There's an older Expedition. How old is that Expedition? 2004?
I think they bought that right before Ed Gale bought that right before he left office.
Goodness gracious.
And I believe the mayor drove it for a while.
About a 04 or 05 Expedition that has about 300,000 miles on it. That one's going to get, I'm assuming, surplus, or it's not going to be used anymore regularly. And then also I guess it was used as, from what I understand, that vehicle is mostly used now to get people to the fire academy and back. And so there's another vehicle in the fire department that's about a 2011 SUV that's going to be moved, that's going to be used for that fire academy back and forth. And so there's just some vehicles shuffling around there. At some point, you have to buy new vehicles. I think we have to deal with that in our personal lives and also, in city business. Another big thing that was discussed was the purchase of about 4 acres of land behind the city public works building on Whitfield Drive. So there's about 10 acres of land back there that, I think Alderman Miller spoke really strongly against the purchase of this land.
I couldn't tell. Was he against it?
He was definitely against it, but voted for the budget, which that's certainly his prerogative to do so. I think that the budget was put in there at about $200,000 for that piece of land. I agreed with Alderman Miller in some ways that, one, we don't know what it's going to cost. It may end up costing more than that. It may cost less. We don't know. We're getting it appraised. We'll have to wait and see. But 2, what is the plan for it other than just Public Works will have more space in the future? How close are we going to go to the neighborhood that's back there? Are we going to try to preserve any of that piece of land? Do we need to? There's just some more questions around it that I think we need to talk through.
One thing, Ben, I hadn't mentioned it because it really hadn't come up yet. It's just a proposal right now, but I think why maybe Mr. Miller gets a little frustrated is this was kind of just brought up.
Right.
We didn't really have an idea. We had formed, I believe, an infrastructure committee
And a long-term asset committee.
An infrastructure committee maybe 2 years ago now, Ben. I think it's me and Natalie Lynch, and I can't remember who else, the mayor, and we haven't met. And so, ideally this kind of, because this is a long-term plan. I'm not saying that we don't need to purchase the land. I'd like to look a little more about it, but that's something maybe we could have put through that committee there and made a decision. Hey, this is what we're doing. Because to be frank, as we continue to grow our city hall, we're going to need a new city hall in the next 10 years. As we continue to grow, I think the police department has mentioned they need to do some expansion. There's talks about a fourth fire station. So those are all things too that I think collectively we could talk about instead of just kind of cherry picking one project at a time.
Right.
Does that make sense?
And those are things that I was certainly balancing in my vote for the budget is that should we be trying to acquire land for public works? Should it be for a future fire department building? Should it be for there's a lot of need potentially that's out there. The fire department that directly hits your fire rating that affects the insurance rate for your home. Sure. So that has a direct impact on people. I certainly think, that public works probably needs more space in the future at some point. But it's balancing all those things out. You got to find a balance, and it's moving forward at this point.
And I think, and to be fair to the mayor, I don't want to hit him too hard.
No.
I think what happened is a landowner came to the city and said, "Hey, look, do y'all still want to buy this property? Because if not, I'm about to sell it." And I think that's part of this issue too. But again, government doesn't move as fast as the private sector, so there should be a process, and I'm sure we're going to have a very lively discussion when it comes time to actually make the purchase on this property. So, I'm sure Mr. Andrew will be on the record when he does.
Well, and I think that the other part of it is that there's parcels to the south of the Public Works property as well. There's other parcels than just that one.
Sure.
Are those similarly priced?
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to have an easement to get to them. I mean, there's a lot of different things there. But
I don't want much you want to get into this, but I think about when we decided to build the animal shelter, we had the chance to purchase that property at that time.
Far cheaper,
and we decided not to do that as a board. I think it was a tie vote, and the mayor cast the vote to not do that. And there were some people who were upset about having a animal shelter, close to their home or whatever. And I understand that. I think claims were unfounded, but they certainly had them, and they're valid.
Sure.
And they spoke their piece, and at the end of the day, they propelled, and we ended up moving into a more industrial area, and it's worked out. But we certainly had a chance to buy that property. What was that 2 or 3 years ago?
Yes.
For less money. So.
Well, I do think the other big, there were some questions floating out there, and one of the questions that I had, and that was answered later in the week was, we didn't have necessarily at that time 100% clarity on if the DeSoto County Schools was going to be chipping in $700,000 to $750,000 to help pay for the McInville paving that we mentioned earlier. We have since gotten that confirmation from the mayor that the school board is going to get that approved, and their attorney's drafting something up, and hopefully we'll be approving that soon. But that was one of the major questions that I had, because if, let's say, that didn't come through, let's say that agreement fell apart for whatever reason, well, now we have $750,000 less to go towards our neighborhood streets. Well, we need to consider some other things at this point. We need to maybe look at the budget again, and look at some of these numbers again, right? Because now we need to basically find that money to replace it. So that was one of my hang-ups. Obviously it's public record, but I was the only one that voted against the budget, and that was one of my main hang-ups there. Like, yes, the Public Works, had some questions around it, but also just I really wanted that surety, and we had until September 15th to approve this budget. Why not take a little bit more time, wait just a little bit longer to make sure we have that assurance? Because I know it was very likely, and I'd, spoken with some school board folks, and they seemed like they were going to get it done. But I also know that anything can happen too.
Sure, that's right.
They can they have a budget they have to balance too. So
Well, that's I think one of the difficult votes we have on the budgets because you're voting on such a large. I mean, I don't know how many different line items there are in that budget. It's hundreds of line items, and there's certainly things in that budget that I do not agree with. I wish we would, probably be a little more fiscally conservative on certain things. But again, there's a lot in there that I do agree with, and so you kind of got to outweigh. You can't just cherry pick and take things.
that's right.
You don't vote on it in a by line item. You vote on it as a whole, and so
Right.
obviously the.
Well, your opportunity to vote via line item is when those items come up, when those projects come up later on, or those purchases come up later on. Then you can absolutely cast your vote against it at that time, or speak to why we shouldn't spend that money at that time. So that's certainly a board member's prerogative to do that too. And I think Alderman Miller may when we went to appraise the land behind Public Works, he voted against the appraisal.
Sure.
And when we go to purchase it, as it's laid out in the budget, if it comes through he'll probably vote against it then.
Well, one time too, I think when I early on my first or second year, we for a couple of years kept putting a something for what was it called a sally port in the police department budget for whatever reason. And they realized that no, it's going to cost a lot more than that than what they budgeted for, so we never did it. And so we voted several times on different items, and I voted against it because I thought it was something we didn't need at the time. And so I think Andrew can do something similar, and this may come back and be $300,000 for that piece of property.
Right.
So I think we only budgeted $200.
Which is $50,000 an acre.
Yeah.
Which to me that sounds like more than what it will appraise for.
Yeah.
I want to say when we did the Civic Center ball fields, right? Mm-hmm. It was 34 acres.
Yes, I believe something.
It was around 34 acres, and it came back appraised at about $720,000. It was a little over $20,000 an acre.
Well, like Andrew also mentioned very eloquently at the board meeting, is this piece of property is landlocked, and so if we don't allow an easement, that has something to do with affects the value a little bit. So. But we'll
there's a lot of things that could be done there. I mean, that 10 acres could be rezoned. I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen to it that the property owner has every right to.
I'm not going to say his name, but I know the property owner there, and he's got several different ideas for that property. That's an area of town that probably could see a little development, a little growth. That little cove there is certainly some pieces of property. I know. Across the street there, another developer had maybe talked about putting a self-storage for RVs and stuff over there. I don't know where that plan still sits. He bought a piece of property and plan to do that. And then we have the Public Works building. It's really a nice little area down through there.
It is.
For
nice.
for a business office or something like that.
All that area that street was just paved there, old Memphis Street, old 51, just paved through there. Speaking of development, so the budget, it's passed, moving forward.
Well, one thing I want to admit before we get off the budget is we keep getting at, what our budget's all about, priorities. And so our general fund budget is 66% of that is committed towards public safety. That's fire, police, dispatch, courts. 66, almost 67% of our budget, over 2/3 of it. So I think that shows you where this board stands on public safety.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point for sure. Speaking of development, there was something on there. I had several people ask me this question about. There's about 70 acres of land just south of the high school that was asked to be serviced with water through Nesbitt Water. So just really quickly here, if you're looking at the new high school and you look to your right going down towards 269, there's about a 70-acre tract of land that is in the city's water area. Public Service Commission says this is Hernando water area. The city does not have any water that's been extended to it. So Nesbitt Water asked if they could service that property with water because there's some potential development opportunity. It is all commercial. There's no residential that's being projected for it by the folks who are buying it. I don't think it's been closed on yet or anything like that, but there's no rezoning that's imminent at this time that we know of. I think it's literally just something where the folks who are wanting to buy it want to know that they can get water to the property in case they get some sort of development going there. But again, it's 70 acres of land down there. I think everybody probably realizes that that 269 corridor continues to be a target for development by people, whether they're local or statewide. There's more coming to that area.
Ben, I don't know if we ever have on this podcast talked about rural water associations. Mm-mm. Have we ever really talked about what
Not really.
And so a rural water association, which is what Nesbitt is, and there's several throughout the county. Whoever you pay your water bill, if it's not a city, then it's a rural water association, was designed to provide water to rural communities who are outside of the range of the municipality. They could pull their resources together, and get water. And they got a lot of federal grants when they were starting up. And what we've seen in DeSoto County is because the county area was growing faster than the municipalities could keep up. And so these rural water associations like Nesbitt Water, what was Bill Robinson's water system, Northwest
Mississippi Utility.
They became very big and service a lot of customers. They're never really designed for that. To be honest, they can't provide fire protection. That's why we had to put a tank on the site of AWG because they're under Nesbitt Water, but a rural water association cannot provide fire protection. And so this building here, the school, I'm assuming the school maybe has a water tower, or maybe South Haven's going to provide them a water protection. I don't know. That's something we need to find out. But I think at some point the question has to be asked: is it time to purchase Nesbitt Water Association, the city of Fernando, or at least start that discussion? I know that's going to be. I think there's some political issues there, but a rural water association was never set up to function in the way it's functioning now. It's not.
Yeah, definitely big questions on just timing and funding and a lot of those things. There's a lot.
I do think that we agreed, from what I understand, when I think Steve Pittman, our city attorney, is going to draft something up. But basically, they're going to get water there. And then once the city has water available there, they'll have so many days to hook up to the water, the city water, and get off Nesbitt Water.
But the big question there, when people are like, well, how do they not have water yet? So what that looks like is that, because those are all, their soybean fields or, whatever they were for however many decades.
Yeah, there was no customers there. And it didn't make financial sense to run water to nowhere.
The water would have to be run underneath I-269. So you'd have to bore underneath the interstate. This is what's going to happen. You have to bore underneath the interstate, run a water line underneath the interstate to get over there. That's what it's going to take. That will cost a lot of money to do that. Now, a new development, a commercial development coming there potentially that would generate hundreds of thousands of dollars in property tax revenue and sales tax revenue and whatever. Well, then that could probably help pay for it. But that's not real yet. That may not happen for 5 years, 10 years. Who knows? May happen sooner than that. Probably won't, because the economy is not really great currently. But that's sort of what we're trying to balance out there, what we're trying to figure out on that end. That's what the developer is asking for here as he goes to close the property. So, all right, what else did we have Tuesday? We talked budget. We talked about potential development down the road, maybe forever away, but maybe soon.
Did we talk about the streets?
We didn't list off the ones that are getting taken care of here. You grab that list somewhere? When we looked at that, we looked at the Civil Link study that we took on how these roads were rated. I think some of them were rated as low as a 2 or a 3, and some of them were about a 5 or a 6.
Right.
That are getting looked at here soon.
Yeah, and we added some. It came in a little lower budget, lower than we expected, under budget. So, I don't have that list. I think
That's all right.
I think Joe Frank gave it to the mayor or something.
Yeah. So one. I know that there's some over in the golf course area. Fairway Oaks was in there.
I know
Nicholas Cove.
Terra Drive is going to get
Notting Hill Drive, Notting Hill Loop.
Yeah.
I know we're on the list. So we do have some neighborhood streets that should be getting paved here before that. As this fiscal year sort of changes, September, October, before it gets too cold. Which, by the way, it was pretty chilly.
You got your long jacket on today.
Yeah, I got a pullover on today. I tell you, it gets a little chilly in the morning time. I think it's going to go away for a little while. We do have some bad weather coming through here at the end of this week. Right as Tupelo will be coming into town to play Hernando in football. There's a tropical depression or some kind of tropical cyclone or something they say is coming through on Thursday,
Maybe
Friday.
Maybe as well as New Orleans the whole time.
Yeah, apparently that's what's going on. So we'll have that going on. But we do have, since we've been talking about recreation a little bit, parks and recreation, we do need to mention this really, really massive thing that Parks has been working on. They continue to get more sponsors for the Hernando Soccer Complex, Renaissance Park, Southern Pediatric Therapy. Huge shout out to them. About $7,500 a year over the next 5 years on some advertisement they'll be doing out there, and also the Heindel Center for the Performing Arts baseball and softball fields at Renaissance Park, or the Heindel Center for Performing Arts field at Renaissance Park. Something to that effect. Northwest Mississippi Community College. Pavilion at Renaissance Park, they have a bunch of naming rights that Northwest is pitching in $29,000 a year for the next 5 years, which is really, really huge money. So when you add all that up, we've been talking about the sponsorships. We appreciate the fact that these businesses and government entities and folks in the community are pitching in to make this happen. We're nearing about $100,000 in pledges annually for the city when you take out the out the percentage that the sportsman's group gets or whatever. $100,000 a year that's some serious money that's coming in to help balance the parks budget and to make things happen over there. We also have this pretty neat little event we've got going on. The Memphis Astronomical Society is going to have an observation event for the community on October 26th at the Hernando Soccer Complex. So they're going to have. It's really neat. They've got all these really big, high-powered telescopes and all this sort of stuff, but they also have a screen that is hooked up to the telescope so you can see what the telescope's seeing without having to look in the little eyepiece, right? So if you go out to it, they're going to have something that shows you exactly what the telescopes are showing without you having to go up and look in it. These folks are real into astronomy and all this stuff, so you can get to see the Milky Way or all the galaxies and all these different sort of things they have going on. It'd be very, very cool event. It's a free event. If you go out there, they say to bring not a regular flashlight, but a red flashlight. I guess that helps kind of cut down on the light pollution. But we still have a nice, fairly rural area of the city where you're able to have an event like this. So it should be very cool.
I got that list, Ben. So I'll read them off here. These are the street paving we're going to see. You're going to see before the end of the year. So Terra Drive south of Parkway, Terra Drive between Parkway and Pebble Creek. Olivia Drive, Sloan's Way, Weatherby Place, Fairway Oaks, and then Summit Drive, Southern Street, Crenshaw Cove, Nicholas Cove, Notting Hill Loop, Notting Hill Drive, East Street, and that's it. I think we added a couple that's not on this list, but that's the ones we'll see here fairly shortly. And if you want, I'll put these on our Facebook page. We hadn't put anything out there in a while,
let's do that.
So I'll put those lists out there. Also, do you want to talk about the easement for the roundabout at 51 in Green Tea?
Yeah, 51 in Green Tea. So MDOT is looking at another roundabout there, and doing they basically put ahead a construction agreement, an easement agreement with the city to have construction of a Highway 51 Green Tea roundabout. So it is a double lane roundabout. So, I don't want to say it's twice the size of the one at Oak Grove and 51, but it is definitely larger. You will have a lane that will basically go north and south. You just stay in that inside lane to keep going north or south. There's an outside lane if you're going to be turning to go on Green Tea or going off one way or another. And so that will be a very significant, definitely a very significant roundabout. I think that we will have to have some kind of state money, MDOT money, something to make that happen. That's not going to be something the city is going to fund on its own.
Funding has. I mean, I know there's been some talk about that. Seem like it's going to be happening. That money has not been secured. Mm-hmm. There's no funding for it. They designed it. I'll share the design on our Facebook page also. Mm-hmm. But
And that's a pretty tough intersection for sure.
Yeah.
I do think that Green Tea and Mackinville still has to be addressed at some point. Probably, in all honesty, probably should have been a priority before this one with the new high school coming. But I understand that the high school was not necessarily on everybody's radar.
I think this is
a year or so ago, and a lot of this stuff is put into place a long time before.
Well, 51's a state highway, and so MDOT has a lot more involvement with there.
That's right.
And I think with the AWG project, I think this may have been a long-term goal, is to get a roundabout there or some kind of traffic device. And so that's probably what got it going.
And while I do think, and I necessarily have not always been a huge fan of roundabouts because I think that people didn't necessarily want them.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's our job to listen to the people.
Are you against roundabouts, man?
Well, no. I think they're fine. I don't have any problem with them. I do think it's our job to listen to what people want and to try to represent the people's voice, right? If they say they don't want something, then we should probably not try to push for it. But if that's the only way to get a traffic device at an intersection, and if that's what MDOT is requiring, then we don't have, we're kind of have our feet held to the fire there.
Yeah.
There's not a lot we can do from that standpoint other than just say, look, we really don't want this, but if this is the only thing that you can do, then I guess we have to accept it. But I do think that people have grown more fond of them now that they see how they work, and even saying that, if you're going to do them, you almost have to do them in a lot more places for them to really work efficiently. So, yeah, having one at Oak Grove and 51 is great, but if traffic's backed up all the way from Robertson Gin Road to 51, well, it doesn't really matter if you got a roundabout or a traffic light or whatever else. You almost have to have that free flow in traffic. And, these things are going to kind of come and go depending on what time of day it is. But that same area, Robertson Gin Road, Highway 51, another thing that we put out to bid in our latest meeting was advertising for bid for the improvement and construction project at Renaissance Park.
Yeah, I almost forgot about that. That's a big deal for us, man.
So phase one is the MOSTIF. If you hear people talk about the MOSTIF grant, what the MOSTIF grant does is creates a green space where people can come and picnic and do sort of family things, a pavilion that's attached to that with some restrooms that people can enjoy.
Disc golf course.
A disc golf course, 18-hole disc golf course in there. Some road improvements to push the road further back into the Renaissance Park property. It doesn't go all the way through to Robertson Gin Road. We made that distinction during the meeting. But there's certainly some improvements coming to that park to make it a little bit better. That's some state money that the city's matching just a little bit on. And then also phase two is the Renaissance Park sports fields. So that's a concession stand, bathrooms, and 4 baseball, softball fields further back on that Renaissance Park property.
Yeah, parking lot, some improvements there, road improvements. And I think the big discussion item about that was will you be able to connect through Robinson Gin to Highway 51? And the answer is no, not right now. We're going to look at what that's going to cost. I've had estimates of maybe $2 million to cross that ditch. There's a pretty good ditch in there if you've ever been back in there.
Yep.
And so that's going to be real money, So we'll have to hopefully we can maybe get some help from the state legislator or maybe DeSoto County or somewhere to fund it.
I think the big thing here is that I know that some of the board members have had a very large sense of urgency for getting that figured out at the meeting. It's going to take probably 2 years for these fields to be constructed.
18 months to 2 years for sure.
2 years from now.
Yeah.
Right. Fall baseball 2026. For sure, they're going to be opened up. So the city does have some amount of time to get some of this figured out, to get some road money figured out. Could you use Mississippi Modernization Act infrastructure funds to do that? Sure. Absolutely, you could. It would come at the expense of some neighborhood streets being paved potentially.
Yeah.
But you could allocate it over a 2-year period of time and make it work that way.
And I think me and you've had discussions privately, but I've talked to some of our legislators, and they were open to the idea of maybe getting some funding for that once the roundabout at Green Tea and 51 was done. So this next legislative session, maybe we can be successful, maybe getting some. I don't think they're going to pay for all of it, but maybe half of it or a third
50,
of it
50,
or something. So
that would be great. I think that it's it's something that with that large piece of land that the city owns now between Renaissance Park and the Civic Center ball fields, it's over 100 acres of land, continuous. The road's got to be cut through. It's got to happen at some point.
But we did when we were trying to do the tourism tax. We were looking at a long range plan. We have that, so we have a bunch of different options. Basketball courts, tennis courts, some more baseball and softball fields, maybe a football field. Different things long term.
Yeah.
It's so much land we can do whatever we want to with it. Just a matter of paying for it, right?
Right.
And so it's got a chance to be something that's really and I'm not saying it's a Snowden Grove type of place or anything like that. But it's got a chance to be a really nice facility in Hernando for the kids of Hernando to enjoy for many years going forward.
And I've heard that from multiple people, and I think we need to make an important distinction because people say, well, they're going to have tournaments out there. There's going to be all this additional traffic and all that. There's no tournaments that are planned right now.
No.
4 new baseball fields and softball fields does not mean we're going to be putting in for some huge tournaments. That's not feasible. We don't have the hotels to do that. So we were very committed. Yeah. I feel like this board was very committed to building something to service this community, not everyone else's community. And so that's why you're seeing it going on in this phased way, in this phased project way. We've listened from the community and said, hey, listen, we don't necessarily want higher taxes. Okay, well, if you don't want higher taxes, we'll take it a little bit at a time, and we're going to slowly get this thing developed and get it taken care of.
Yeah, we obviously we could have done something at a quicker pace if we did have some additional revenue through a restaurant tax or a tourism tax. However, that didn't work, and so we're doing a piecemeal. We're doing a phase, pay for it. We'll do another phase, pay for it, do another. So it may be a 20 or 30-year plan before we get it fully developed out there like we want to, but we're going to get there. I think of course Jared's a park guy, but we're building a recreational facility. This is not to get travel baseball teams. No. This is not to get travel disc golf teams. This is to provide to our community a great sense of outdoor recreational. You go play disc golf with your friends.
That's right.
Go out and sit in the meadow and a lot of people use that area out there for to go running or walking. It's a nice track out there. This is going to help with that. Getting the parking better, and there's a dog park out there, things like that. It's not to make some. We're not making a multi-million-dollar business out there with baseball fields.
We do need a sign, though. I spoke with the mayor about that this week. I said we really need a sign that says Renaissance Park.
Yeah,
I know we got some wayfinding signs that are coming with some ARPA grants that the Chamber of Commerce got, and those are coming. And I think that when we get some signage that really shows people where this park is, and they see the transformation of it, I think it'll be a really great thing. Get
Renaissance Park to help us throw in on a sign.
You never know, Mike can. So that was the bulk of our meeting from Tuesday. Did want to say if your kids are interested in basketball, sign-ups are going on.
I don't want to play.
I think I'm going to have one that's going to play. Out there at the field house on Green Tea Road, it hosts that's the building that hosts our basketball league. Over 600 kids played in it last year. Great league. Kids come from all over the county into Hernando to play in that basketball league. It's pretty competitive one, especially in the older age groups. So get your kids signed up.
Nicest basketball facility in the state, in the country. In the county.
Yeah, the deadline on that is September 16th. So you can go to cityofhernando.org and click on Parks and Rec and get registered through that. I think that's all the big things we got going on. Hernando and Tupelo on Friday.
Well, Haifa
night.
Youth football started. I wasn't able to make it. I was out of town, but started with the Haifa night on Friday night, then had the first little jamboree on Saturday. And the Blue Tigers are going to be ready. We're going to be ready. Next, we play the 14th against Senatobia in Horn Lake. We're playing in Horn Lake. It's our first game, but we're going to be ready.
Y'all running like a wing tee, power I, or y'all?
I think
we're start passing the ball.
No, we're starting with I formation.
Okay.
So it's flag football. It's 8 on 8. And you got to have 5 people on the line, so you're really kind of limited in what you can do.
Yeah.
And but we're going to do the old I formation, 34 belly or whatever. That's from high school days there.
That's right. Zone read right.
I think that was Anthony Jenkins' favorite play back in the days. A lot of
34.
People are going to remember when our 5 or 6 people that listen who played with 34 belly was a very popular play.
Hey, it's like Novocaine. Just give it some time,
That's
and
right.
it'll eventually
That's
work.
right. You
That's
ran
the old
34
saying.
belly a lot.
That's the old saying there. But well, we've had definitely a very packed show here. There's a lot of information in there. Check out our Facebook page, Boardroom Podcast. You can download us just about anywhere. Like and subscribe, all the things. But for now, I'm Ben Piper.
I'm Chad Wicker.
Thanks for listening.